I'm 34. Wife is 32. Together 8 years. Married for 5. No kids yet, or at least that was the plan before everything went sideways. Up until a few months ago, I would have described our marriage as mostly fine with normal stress, which I know now is the biggest red flag sentence on this entire subreddit. She's always had a sharp attitude and a habit of snapping when things don't go her way, but chalked it up to her being strong-willed. Lately, though, something shifted fast, like flipping a switch. She started guarding her phone like it contained nuclear codes, sudden password changes, angling the screen away from me, jumping when I walked into a room. She picked fights out of nowhere, called me controlling for asking basic questions, accused me of not supporting her enough, then 2 days later acted overly sweet like nothing happened. Our intimacy dropped off a cliff, and when I brought it up, she told me I was being needy and immature. She started working late, even though her job has never required overtime, bought new clothes out of nowhere, changed her appearance suddenly, and anytime I tried to talk, she'd gaslight, tell me I was imagining things or that I was just insecure. I remember sitting on the couch one night thinking I was losing my mind because the woman I married felt like a stranger who barely tolerated me. I kept telling myself every marriage has rough patches and I needed to man up and push through. I didn't know then how fast everything was about to explode or how ugly the truth would be once it finally hit me. Things didn't slowly unravel like in some dramatic movie. They detonated all at once. Last Tuesday, she rushed out of the house saying she was late for work and got her tablet on the kitchen counter, which almost never happens because that thing is basically glued to. Buzzed 5 minutes after she left. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear. I was literally going to turn the sound off, but the notification banner popped up and it was a message from a guy's name I didn't recognize saying, "Last night was insane. Can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to throw up. My hands were shaking as I unlocked because apparently she never bothered to change the tablet password. And there it was. An entire thread of messages going back weeks. Flirting, inside jokes, plans to meet, complaints about me, her calling me boring and emotionally unavailable, sending him selfies she never sends me anymore. Then I found the photos, explicit enough that there was no possible misunderstanding. While I was still processing that, another message came from him asking when she'd escape the house again. I sat there in silence, feeling like the walls were closing in. Then it got worse. Fast. I scrolled further and realized this wasn't even the first guy. There was another archived chat. Shorter, but still damning. Emails, too. Emails. Who even cheats through email anymore? Apparently, my wife does. I checked our shared location history and saw she'd been lying about working late to meet him across town. The sudden events just kept stacking. My phone rang and it was her boss asking if she was feeling better today because she'd taken the afternoon off, meaning she wasn't at work at all, meaning every excuse she gave me that morning was a lie. I hung up without explaining and just sat there staring at the screen. This weird calm, like my brain shut down to protect itself. I took screenshots of everything because some survival instinct kicked in, and then I heard her car pull back into the driveway later, way earlier than expected, which told me she had no idea I knew yet, and that's when the calm cracked. I realized there was no going back to it anymore. I didn't plan some calm sit-down like the advice blogs suggest. It just erupted the second she walked in and saw my face. She asked why I was home so quiet, and before she even finished the sentence, I asked who the hell Mark was. Her expression flickered for half a second before she slammed into full defense mode. First she laughed like I'd told a joke and said I was being paranoid again. Then she accused me of snooping and violating her privacy. Classic deflection. When I put the tablet on the table and told her I saw everything, she immediately switched stories and said it was just harmless flirting, that it didn't mean anything, that I was blowing it out of proportion. I asked her to explain the photos and the hotel receipts, and suddenly she was crying, saying she felt neglected, that I was never there for her emotionally, that she didn't feel desired. 5 minutes later, the tears stopped and she got nasty, called me cold, called me lazy, told me any woman would have cheated on me eventually. I asked how long it had been going on and she swore it was only a few weeks. Then I showed her screenshots proving it was longer, and she snapped that the dates didn't matter, that I was focusing on the wrong thing. She lied so easily, it was honestly impressive in a horrifying way. Every time I pinned her down with evidence, she rewrote the story, minimized it, or blamed me. At one point, she even said she never technically cheated because they had a connection I wouldn't understand. When I mentioned the second guy, she froze, went silent, then exploded, screaming that I had no right to judge her and that I drove her to this. Neighbors probably heard because she was yelling at the top of her lungs while I just stood there realizing I didn't recognize this person at all. The confrontation ended with her storming out again, saying she needed space and that I needed to think about my role in all of this, leaving me alone in the house surrounded by screenshots of her lies and the echo of her blaming voice. And that's when the anger finally hit me full force. After she left, the house went dead quiet, and then my brain just went completely feral. I was pacing, shaking, alternating between wanting to scream and wanting to curl up on the floor. Anger hit first like a truck, not just at her, but at myself for ignoring every red flag. I replayed every fight, every late night, every time she called me insecure, and realized how thoroughly I'd been played. Then the sadness crept in hard, the kind that sits in your chest and makes it hard to breathe. I kept looking at our wedding photos on the wall like they belonged to strangers. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. And when it was just spam or a friend, I felt stupid for hoping. She texted later saying she was staying at a friend's place and that we'd talk when things cooled down. Like this was a disagreement about dishes and not her detonating our marriage. I cried in the shower like a cliche because it was the only place I could make noise without feeling embarrassed. Then the anger came back stronger, mixed with humiliation, knowing 2 other guys knew things about my marriage I didn't, knowing she laughed about me behind my back. At some point around 3 a.m., the emotional roller coaster slowed, and this numb acceptance settled in. Not forgiveness, not peace, just the realization that the marriage I thought I had was already gone, long before I found the proof. I wasn't losing her, I was finally seeing her, and that realization hurt more than the cheating itself. The next morning, things escalated again, because of course they did. She came back to grab clothes and acted like she was doing me a favor by even acknowledging. I told her we needed to talk, now and not later, and she rolled her eyes and said she was exhausted from all the drama. That word still makes my blood boil. I laid everything out calmly for once, told her I knew about both guys, the lies, the fake work nights, the blame shifting, and that I wasn't going to sit there and be rewritten into the villain of her story anymore. She tried one last pivot and said we could try couples therapy if I was willing to change and meet her needs. That was the moment something snapped into place. Not in an angry, explosive way, but in a clear, quiet way. I realized every option she offered still required me to swallow the disrespect and take responsibility for choices she made. I told her I wanted a separation, not a threat, not a test, an actual separation. She laughed at first and said I'd never go through with it. Then when she saw I was serious, she suddenly got scared and accused me of abandoning her, which was almost impressive given the circumstances. Within hours, everything moved fast again. I called a lawyer friend for advice, moved my important documents, and backed up the screenshots. She packed a bag and left for real this time. And just like that, our shared life was reduced to logistics and silence. It wasn't dramatic or empowering, people make it sound. It was hollow, painful, and weirdly calm. But for the first time in months, I wasn't doubting my own reality or apologizing for having feelings, and that alone felt like the right direction, even if it hurt like hell. It's been a few weeks now, and I'm still in the wreckage phase, but I've had enough distance to see things more clearly. What I've learned is that trust doesn't usually shatter in one moment. It erodes while you're busy making excuses for someone who's already checked out. I learned that being constantly blamed, minimized, and lied to will make you doubt your own sanity if you let it, and that love doesn't require you to accept disrespect just to keep the peace. I don't know what the final outcome will be yet. Divorce is on the table, and honestly likely, but I do know I won't go back to the version of myself that begged for honesty from someone who was committed to lying. If anyone reading this is in that early phase where things feel off and you're being told you're just insecure or dramatic, please don't ignore that feeling. Document things. Trust patterns, not words. And don't let someone rewrite your reality because it's convenient for them. I wish I'd listened to my gut sooner, but I'm listening now, and that might be the only good thing to come out of all of this.